Hello, amazing entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here with another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Today is episode number 156, so all the show notes and the extra goodies that I have for you today will be available at tashcorbin.com/156. Now today what we're talking about is a strategy that is near and dear to my heart. It's something that I love doing. I love spreading it from the rooftops. Everybody, you should do a webinar. And here's why I still think they are the best freebie. Let's get started. So if you've followed me for any more than 5 minutes, you'll probably know that I am a big fan of webinars. And webinars have got a pretty bad rap over the years. It has been so interesting to see the online business world fall in love with them, use them almost exclusively as freebies, then move to some other kind of types of freebies, fall out of love with them, and then kind of have the resurgence. Kind of this roller coaster love affair that the online business world has with webinars. But I have stayed true to webinars the whole time in my business. Over the last 5.5 years, I would have run over 100 webinars, and it has been so much fun for me to do. And I still think they are the best freebie. And I wanted to share that with you and talk about why I love webinars so much, because I want to address some of the objections that people have to webinars and also help you understand the business benefits beyond just the initial sales that you make when you run a webinar as well. So number one, what is a webinar and why are they so sexy? Well, what is a webinar? It is an online web-based seminar. That's where the word webinar comes from. So whether you call it a webinar or a masterclass or an intro session or a group session or a group workshop, I'm referring to when you run a free class or workshop online and you require people use their email address to register for it, and there is an upsell at the end. That is a webinar, and these are the things that we're talking about today. So we won't get into the nuance of the difference between a workshop and a seminar and all of those sorts of things. This is a free online class of some sort that people give you their email address for. So I love webinars because number one, they are so highly connected as a freebie. So if you think about running a challenge or an ebook or listening to an audio, when it comes to actually coming along to a live webinar, there's so much more connection compared to some of those other freebie types because we are all in the room at the same time together. Now, one of the caveats I then need to give, if that is one of the reasons why I love webinars so much, is to let you know that I hate automated webinars. And I'm not talking about pretending that we're all turning up at the same time in the same room. When I refer to webinars, I think that if your audience are going to all of the effort to turn up to your webinar at a particular time because it's run that way, then you should probably turn up to that webinar at that same time as well. So we can tell as entrepreneurs the difference between whether you're actually here live or whether you're just playing pretensies and you're using one of those automated softwares to make it look like you're there live, but you're not actually there live. Not particularly interested in playing fake games. So when I talk about webinars, I'm talking about you actually being there live, delivering the webinar live, answering people's questions along the way, and answering questions at the end once you've done your upsell pitch. So number one is connection. I am all about connection in business. You probably have noticed that by now. And that's one of the main reasons why I love webinars so much. That connection also creates other opportunities, which are what are some of the other things that I love about webinars. So number two is conversion. So webinars for me are still the highest converting freebie and lead magnet that I use in my business, hands down. When I run a webinar live, I'm dealing with people's objections. They're live in the chat box, and so they are much more likely to convert into purchasing the thing that I'm selling at the end if they come along to that webinar. I'm taking them through a particular learning process. I'm helping them to achieve an outcome. We're building trust. We're feeling connected, and therefore the conversion rates are way higher. Number three is live messaging feedback. So if I'm launching something or I'm promoting a webinar or I'm out there sharing spreading the word about a particular webinar topic and I'm not getting signups, I know that I haven't nailed my messaging. And that live feedback from people, by them signing up or not signing up, definitely gives me lots of insight as to what I'm doing right and wrong with my messaging. So I can use different ways to promote my webinar. I can slightly tweak my messaging as I go. I don't need to roll out the whole process of the webinar, wait and see, oh, I actually only got 4 signups for this thing. Clearly the messaging was wrong. I can change it on the fly. It's such a flexible way of running and promoting something. And if that means I need to tweak the content of the webinar slightly, I can do that as well because I'm delivering it live. So it's a really beautiful way of you getting really great live messaging feedback, and even better when you're actually there on the call as well. So if you, for example, are pitching an online course or program at the end of your webinar and you notice you're getting all of these questions from people that you would think would actually be quite obvious, then clearly in your articulation of what that offer is, you're not addressing people's initial objections, and you can get that feedback then and there live on the call. It is so beautiful and so sexy. The other thing I love is that when I run a webinar, I'm taking people through a process. I'm actually teaching them something on that webinar. I'm helping them to achieve a particular outcome, get better at sales, start getting more clients in the door. I'm teaching them Facebook strategy, whatever it might be that I'm teaching. If people are all asking similar questions, or if I get some questions that come up that say to me, I haven't taught that particularly well, if people are asking those questions, then I can refine that process and actually do it better next time. And then if I turn that webinar into a different type of freebie, I know that it's actually going to work for people. So this is what I did with the Magnetic Business ebook. If you haven't got that ebook, then I'll pop the link to it in the show notes at tashcorbin.com/156. But that was actually initially a webinar, and I ran that webinar 3 times. I played with the messaging, I played with the process, I played with some of the objections that people had, and then I turned it into an ebook. Now, if I had just created that ebook without testing it as a webinar first, then a lot of people would have got halfway through that ebook, got stuck, not understood what I was talking about, and not got the value out of it. But because I have delivered that live as a webinar, I've got that messaging feedback live, I've got that feedback on whether it works or not live, I know that when people read the Magnetic Business ebook, they become more magnetic in their business. They know what strategies they need to put in place. That is the sexiness of a webinar. Number 4, flexibility. So I also really love that I have a lot of flexibility when it comes to running a webinar. If I'm running a webinar and I've wanted to launch, let's say I want to launch a group program, and my minimum number that I need in early bird for my group program is 10, and I go out there and I start promoting my webinar. It's 2 days before the webinar and I've only got 25 people signed up. The chances of me converting 10 out of 25 people into my online course are quite low. So what I can do is actually change the upsell, delay my launch, understand, hey, I actually haven't got the messaging right for this. Hundreds of people didn't come flooding in for this webinar. It might be the messaging, it might be my promo strategy, but something's not working here. So therefore, I don't have to commit to this being the start of my launch. Instead, my upsell at the end can be a one-to-one offer, or I can offer something else at the end, and I can delay launching my course or program until I've got the pre-sale stuff right. So there's so much flexibility. I don't have to commit to the specific topic equals this specific outcome. I can tweak and change as I go. There's just so much flexibility in running a webinar, and I think it's a very powerful way when you're in that initial phases of navigating, how do I sell this, what messaging do I use, who is this for? When you're navigating all of that and getting that clear, webinars create so much flexibility. You don't have to get everything right from the start. You can learn and refine as you go. And then number 5, I love webinars because they're so good at focused list growth. So I know if I run, for example, a webinar on facilitating Facebook groups, I know that I'm filling my list with people who are interested in facilitating Facebook groups. And it's very targeted and focused. So therefore, when I offer my Get Profesh sesh on how to create and grow your own Facebook group, my list is full of people who are interested in that thing. Or when I go to promote and launch the academy, I can talk about our focus for the month of November or whatever it might be is facilitating your own Facebook group and creating a lot of reach and growth in that Facebook group. I know my list is jam-packed full of people who are interested in that because I've run webinars on it. So it's a really beautiful way for you to actually jam-pack your list full of the right people for whatever your next offer or upsell or launch might be as well. So it is really good for that focused, niched list growth as well. So just quickly, before I close up, those are my 5 reasons why I love webinars. I wanted to also talk about some of the objections to webinars, resistance to webinars, and the goods and the bads and the not so greats of webinars as well. So number 1, the biggest thing that people say to me is, I hate going to webinars because the first 20 minutes the person's just talking about themselves. Clearly, that's not the kind of webinar that I'm talking about here, and that is not how I run my webinars. I have people who already have all of my courses who will still come to every single free webinar that I run because they know they're going to get great value out of it. I have people who've never purchased anything from me in their lives, but they will always come to my live webinars because they know they're going to get great value out of it. That is a beautiful reputation to have in the online business world. So yes, you may have some resistance to people signing up and coming along to webinars if they're used to that style, but instead of saying, everybody's ruined webinars for us, let's take some responsibility and be leaders in this space and show people how great webinars are created and delivered as well. The other thing is the whole self-indulgent webinar, the webinar where you just talk about how amazing you are and you're making people jump through hoops and NLPing them to make them think that they're never going to succeed without you. Again, that's not the kind of webinar that I'm talking about. And finally, those automated webinars where it's actually pre-recorded and then when you sign up, you can choose one of 12 times in the next week. Clearly, that person's not going to be doing 12 webinars in the next week. I'm not talking about those webinars either. They are, I think, strategies that have been used to turn webinars from what they're great at into webinars that push people through the sales process. And I think a lot of people are wising up to that these days, and it's actually not working that well. So that's why I think a lot of people fell out of love with webinars, is because they found that they stopped working. But they stopped working because people weren't actually using webinars to teach people and to actually help people achieve an outcome first. They were just focused on all the things I need to do in a webinar to make sure that I make lots of sales. And unfortunately, that means that that whole connection, that whole giving value, that whole creating trust with people is lost because people are trying to, hack their way through creating that trust, when really the best way for you to create trust with your audience is to actually help them achieve something. So I have a beautiful little freebie for you today that will help you if you are now on the webinar train, and you want to do webinars as well. In the Lady Posse library, I have a beautiful training called Winning Webinars, and it's where I take you through my webinar creation process. And we also have 2 amazing ladies who offered to be guinea pigs for me, and we actually built their webinars together and recorded the entire process. So Laurie Griggs, who teaches money strategy, profit first, and bringing together your business and personal finances, and Kate Arthy, who is a personalized health coach from Lifestyle Artists, we have actually created their webinars together, and we've recorded the entire process for you. So you can see the way that I unpack the way that the process works, build the structure using the Winning Webinars training, and help people to take their audiences through what I call a turn process, where you turn people from curious about your work into paying clients. So you will find all of that in the Lady Posse library. And as I said, all the special links for you today will be with the show notes at tashcorbin.com/156. Now, one thing I do want to say about this webinars training is that when you apply it, it really does work. And I have 2 beautiful little stories to tell you about this. So I had one lady who jumped in and grabbed the Winning Webinars training, and she watched Laurie's build, and she sent me an email and said, I've run 3 webinars before I built them the way that you build them. I've been running my webinars based on a sales coach's advice with the talking about myself, lots of testimonials, only give them 1 gold nugget, spend at least 15 minutes on your sales pitch, and I have made less than $1,000 out of the 3 webinars put together. I ran a Tash style webinar once and made $2,500 worth of sales within 48 hours of the webinar ending. Sexy, right? And then I had a recent VIP client who ran an advanced masterclass style webinar as part of her launch process, and we sold $15,000 worth of her course, which is under $1,000 a spot, simply by using this beautiful webinars process. And that was just within the first 3 days. The follow-up sequence and the rest of the launch sequence went on, and she made way more sales from there. But the one webinar and advanced masterclass that we put together made 15K worth of sales. So this is really sexy training, and when you put it in place, it actually does work. So it's really beautiful, and I'm happy to share it with you free of charge. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. I look forward to seeing you promoting your webinars and making sure that you're getting lots of people signed up to them. Until next time, I've been Tash Corbin. You've been a fabulous listener, and I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.